Welcome to Power of the Tribe podcast. I'm your host, John Connors. I'm also the founder and head instructor of Connors Martial Arts in Norwood, Massachusetts. And it's, April 17th? And we're still in lockdown, so you really can't come down, and we can't help you at the moment. But we're ready to help you when we can. And I'm here with Dr. Dan. Should I call you Dr. Dan?
I think whatever, all rules are off during the quarantine.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm all right.
Yeah.
The quarantine's going on for if people are listening to this way later. It's I feel like we're in a new phase now. It was madness at first. We were like, what's happening? Everything's shutting down. Then like a bad sort of fear and anxiety overtaking everyone. Like the worst is yet to come. We don't know what's going to happen. I almost feel like we're on a new phase of like, no one's saying it's going to get worse from here. It's sort of like we're just in it. And it's almost like a new kind of frustration as it's like it's just going on and on and on. And while it's not, I don't think it has the same sort of like fear and anxiety about what's coming. It's more like, well, how long is this going to last? Like we still don't know how long. It still seems indefinite. We keep hearing. I'm sure I said 2 weeks ago, like, well, the next 2 weeks will tell the story. And it just seems to keep pushing out 2 weeks. You keep it.
Yeah, we said that twice in a row.
Yeah,
we
they
started
keep saying
like March 13th, I think is when we closed the academy. Yeah.
5 weeks now people have been home, right? I think my son came home 5 weeks ago.
Maybe. Yeah.
So
I think we shut the academy Friday, March 13th, I thought.
because I remember
It's the 17th now. So, yeah, 4 or 5 weeks, yeah.
5 weeks ago, you know, it was sort of like we're 2 weeks behind Italy. So the next 2 weeks will tell the story.
Oh, right.
And then those 2 weeks go by and it's like, well, really the next 2 weeks we're going to peak. And then it was like those 2 weeks went by and then it's like, well, really probably the next 2 weeks we're going to peak. Like it seems to just be dragging on and on.
Yeah.
But I feel like the anxiety is loosening a little bit in the nation. I don't know, I don't have a pulse on a feeling of like how everyone out there feels, but that's just my impression.
I think you're right. I feel like there's only so much within your own control, right?
Yeah.
So as time goes on, you get resolute to that. You stop worrying about things that you really can't control, I think. I don't know. But everybody's different. We talk a lot about personality profile. So there are some people that probably are worrying a lot more than others based on their personality. So, and they can't help it. So
yeah, and some people are better able to sort of sit back. And I feel like I'm pretty well able to just sit back and chill at my house if I have to.
So who's at your house? Your wife and your kids?
Yeah, so there's 6 people in total and 2 dogs. So it's
2
kind
dogs.
of really full. Like it's
pretty full.
Yeah, but not in a bad way. Like
right.
It's not, I have room and there's people around and you know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I think it's harder if you're by yourself or less room to.
I'm pretty much by myself. It is harder. Yeah.
You have long periods where you're just like, what am I going to do now? You better be able to either read or watch TV, right? Like, if you don't like to watch TV. And
I read a little of The Fighter's Mind by Sam Sheridan. You familiar with that book?
I think I read it. That's
I'm sure you did.
Like 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Yeah.
How did the book? So Zoran, the director of our film, he suggested I read it, and then coincidentally, Matt Field left some books at the Academy as a donation, and right on the top was Fighter's Mind. He wrote 2 books, Sam Sheridan did. He wrote Fighter's Heart and Fighter's Mind. So I grabbed Fighter's Mind, and I read a little bit of it.
I might have read Fighter's Heart, actually, because I recognize the author's name.
Yeah.
But not,
So 10 years ago was Fighter's Mind. So there's a chapter in there about Mark Dellagrotte, which I got a kick out of. I read that. And there's a chapter about Kenny Florian as well.
I don't think I read that.
And I read that. He's a good writer.
You knew them?
Yeah, he came out here. He went to Sityodtong in Somerville and trained with them. And he had trained in Muay Thai, so he could get in there and do a little kickboxing sparring with everybody as well.
Back when Kenny was at Sityodtong?
Yeah.
That's when I was there, too. I wonder if I crossed paths with them. Or, the thing is, if he just came a different time of day, I might have never seen him.
He might have came in for a few weeks,
if he came
too,
at nights and I came during the day, that'll do it,
Right.
That happens at your academy sometimes where I just don't cross paths with people. And it sort of seems strange to some of the other people that I haven't met someone.
Yeah.
That it's like we both had been there for 10 years, and they were.
It's often surprising to me because I just, in my mind, assume everybody knows each other, and then of course, they often don't. Yeah.
But so you read the book?
Read the book, and I didn't read the whole book, Dan. I picked that's why it's a good book. Actually, you can just grab any particular chapter. It's pretty self-contained and read it and get a lot out of it. And like I said, it's very well written. The first chapter is about Dan Gable, which I got a big kick out of reading that as well. That's closer to Jiu Jitsu, I suppose, than some of the other people in there.
Yeah, I don't think I read. Is Fighter's Heart also an old book from 10 years ago? Because
I think it's before that, so it might be 15 years old.
That's probably. I think I read that, and I read it like 12 years ago.
Yeah, so. 2005. That's something like that.
Yeah, that's what I think I read. Because I don't remember Dan Gable, Mark, Kenny. Like, I don't remember any of those people being in there.
Yeah, they reference Kenny losing to Sean Shirk in a bloodbath, and then I think they reference him beating Joe Stevenson. I think that was the last fight they referenced. So I don't know whenever that fight was, but I think it was probably 2010 or something like that.
Yeah. I was in the thick of things then. I used to go out to the fights with Kenny then.
Yeah.
So Sam, he wasn't saying he was there, right? Because he wasn't with. Everybody.
It sounds like he at least went over to Somerville and went and did some training and interviewed guys and went out to dinner with them. I just
missed him there, but he wasn't at the fights.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It was a good book though, or the chapters.
I think it's good. Yeah, chapters I read were real good. The Dan Gable one was interesting, Dan. So one of Dan Gable's things was that he was relentless with his offense. Like, he never stopped coming at people. He wanted to either pin them or win by technical fall. So in wrestling, they have like a slaughter rule. If you score a certain amount of points, then you win the match and they stop the match. So that was his attitude. That's the way he trained. That's the way he competed. And he only lost one wrestling match in his entire career. So he was national champion, collegiate national champion for 3 out of 4 years. I think I'm recalling this correct. So his last college match in the finals for the championship, and he already won 3 years, freshman, sophomore, junior. As a senior, he loses the match. And then after that, he never lost again. He won the Olympics and he won the World Championships. And then he retired.
So again, this depends on personality, but applying that mindset, what are your initial thoughts on applying that nonstop aggressive attitude to jiu-jitsu? Just because I feel like a lot of times jiu-jitsu, that attitude is almost maybe accidentally discouraged. It's like it's a cerebral game. It's a chess match. You sit, you analyze a position. It's not sort of relentless.
I think it's complicated, offense. Dan. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about it. So in the match, he's winning the match, right? And they're running out of time. So he goes to try to turn the guy over, score more points, try to pin the guy. And he's using some kind of arm-barring chicken wing type technique. But earlier in the match, he used the same technique, and the guy reversed him, and the guy scored points on him. The guy was winning, and now he scrambled back. Now he's regained the lead, and he goes to do the same technique, and again he gets reversed and gets points scored on him, and he loses. So in other words, if he had taken a more conservative approach, he could have rode out the match probably and won and been undefeated. But he didn't do that. Right. So, but that was sort of the cornerstone of his personality and his true power, was that he was just going to be relentlessly attacking people.
Do you think it might have to do with just your personality and your cardio, and like it might not be a great idea, for example, if you're a little out of shape or you're a little older, to try to relentlessly go after someone 20 years younger than you or in better shape? Like, your cardio is going to go first.
So then he talks about he's at another point. I think he's in the finals of the World Championship or maybe the gold medal. I think in the Olympics nobody scored any points on him. And then maybe the finals of the World Championship, he's winning and there's like 40 seconds left, and he remembers the one match that he lost, and he slows down. He notices the other guy's not attacking, so then he slows down a little bit and sort of coasts the last 40 seconds and becomes world champion. So and on the one hand, he says he learned a lesson from his loss that helped him become world champion. But then as he's sitting there retired, it's his one regret is that he coasted. Fascinating, right?
Yeah.
I think a couple things. I think obviously it's probably better to be strategic. Like he doesn't even believe in victory formation. Like an NFL team is winning and now they can just kneel and run out the clock and win. He doesn't even want to do that. So he's a little crazy. So I think a couple things. Maybe if you train that way, but then when you competed, you perhaps strategically took your foot off the gas and, did victory formations, so to speak, to win. Like, oh, I'm already winning. I'm in the finals. I'm going to take a more conservative path here just to ensure my victory. That's probably strategically the way to go. But maybe when you're in the training hall, you don't take it that way. You just go the opposite. You just like never stop attacking.
So you won a world championship. Do you feel that you came relentlessly forward against your opponents?
My finals match, I did, yeah. But I think, Dan, everyone's personality is different, and you can't compete in a way too far differently than the way you train. So if you're going to have that relentless attacking thing, you got to train that way, day in and day out, because you have to have the chops to do it. You have to have the cardio, the energy, the stamina, the strength to do it, the power of your mind to do it. You just can't like fart around in training and then say, "Oh, I'm just going to be relentless." Your body's not going to keep up. But the other thing to consider, Dan, is the guy's body fell apart. Like Dan Gable retired relatively young, but then he's had hip and knee replacements, and he's got all kinds of injuries and everything. So he seemed like he was sidelined with injuries pretty early on, relative to what I would want to do. I want to keep training jiu-jitsu for the rest of my life, so I think I have to be a little bit more circumspect in how I approach it.
Right. I mean, I think, again, we're in an era now where across sports, athletes are becoming more attuned to the fact that they can't always use this wild or reckless style, right? They cut their career short all the time, right?
Definitely cut your career.
Football's tremendous with it now. No more quarterbacks. Scrambling quarterbacks are just constantly coached to get rid of the ball now. And
well, if you have an opportunity, Dan, to make $10 or $15 million a year, one more year means a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if you just kind of... I remember, I'm a little older than you. When I was a kid, Franco Harris for the Steelers, he was the first guy that would slip out of bounds instead of like lowering his shoulder before he went out of bounds. And some people gave him a little bit of heat because of that, but he was very successful running back. And now it's obvious. It makes sense. Why would you, to gain it, unless you were going for the first down, guys pretty much, they'll avoid the head. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, especially the wide receivers, the smaller guys.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get another $10 million if you last one more year. But besides them, I think, I don't know, Dan. I think maybe I want to train a little bit that way, like that relentless style, but then also keep, be intelligent about it because I want to keep my body as sound as possible.
But again, it's not that straightforward. Like I'm sure you're capable of having very slow rolls with, people that are significantly less experienced than you and not like losing your edge, right? It's like if I've seen you roll lots of times where you sort of fall to your back and let people take side control, and it's not like you lose your edge, right? Or unless, do you stop doing that as you get close to a competition? Yeah,
I think so. I think you actually bring up a good point. It really depends on your goals. If you want to be a competitor, you kind of have to train at a different tempo because timing is so important because you're going with people, and a lot of times both athletes know exactly, they have the same information, the same technical information. So it's a little bit about who gets to the position first, right?
Right.
So that was an interesting chapter. I don't know. I have a lot of respect for Dan Gable, but if your body's falling apart, that just can't be the approach that I want to take or I want to advocate out of my academy, right? Yeah. That doesn't seem like the way we want to go. That doesn't seem like a real martial arts or a real jiu-jitsu approach, right?
I remember way back when, so again, I guess that same time frame that we were just talking about 10 years ago, Georges St. Pierre was getting coached to, a lot of his style was to sort of shoot and get people up against the fence. Get the takedown if you could, but if not,
Push him against the cage.
Push him against the cage. Try to work for the takedown there, and basically not get hit, and extend your career. And those were an earlier era of MMA where it was kind of frowned upon. Like the audience, to this day, I guess, audience will boo if they're put up against a fence. People still want to see rock'em sock'em robots, right? They want to see, a lot of the crowd rather see a bar brawl than professional fight. So 10 years ago, I remember it was sort of almost, Firas Zahabi almost was one of the first coaches to be like, maybe we want to extend your career. I guess also because GSP was one of the first people to make a ton of money. Not the first, but one of the first. And I remember at the time it was sort of almost eye-opening for when Kenny Florian went up there, and they were sort of like, well, let's have you try to not get hit, try to tie people up, try to, use the same style. And you saw it when Kenny fought BJ Penn. He'd shoot and he had BJ up against the cage for a large portion of that fight. And it was from going up to Canada and getting that sort of style, like, let's not.
I remember he caught a fair amount of criticism from Dana White for that fight too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, people, it's not as exciting.
Yeah.
But what's exciting for the fans, the fans love to see someone get their head punched off into orbit by Ngannou or someone, but like, it's not great for the fighter. Like, if you're fighting the guy, you're like, I'm not going to slug it out with him. I want to.
They're trying to put a fight together May 9th, and he'll be on the card fighting that Rosenstruck, who is another just phenom. Wow.
Yeah. The May 9th. Is it going to be on an island? Is that like, we're in weird times, isn't it? Like,
Yeah.
We're in times of like Dana White is going to hold an event on a fight island. It's just crazy times.
It's crazy. I'll tell you, COVID is not as dangerous as getting in the cage with those two guys. Ngannou, that is just crazy. He hits people so hard.
We were laughing about that a little bit, how it's like, well, they have to make all the precautions to make sure the fighters don't get COVID. And then it's like, yeah, but he's getting in the cage with
Ngannou. And the other guy, Rosenstruck,
launches head to the moon. It's a lot worse than COVID.
They have cannons. They can hit so hard. It's scary. Yeah, really scary.
I know. The only thing is I've learned over the years, a fight like that where you're like someone is getting demolished, often it somehow doesn't happen. Like they both get cautious or they.
Yeah, that happened when he fought that guy, the Beast. What's his name?
Derek Lewis.
Derek Lewis and Ngannou, I guess it was a real stinker of a fight. Yeah. Yeah,
it was like someone's first round, someone's going to sleep, and then it just.
Yeah, hopefully that won't happen. Yeah,
it'd be good to have an event, right? I mean,
I would love to see it. Yeah, I would love to see it. I'm losing my mind.
I would guess it would do tremendous business. If I assume it's pay-per-view.
I think it would do a tremendous pay-per-view. Yeah, yeah.
I think there'll be people who don't even ever get the pay-per-views who'll just get it because we've all been stewing for so long.
There's no sports on, right, at all, is there? Yeah.
No. Did you see they did a horse? The NBA players played horse in their driveways against each other. As an ESPN
So it was
special.
like a Zoom thing? They were all remotely
like they were just like on literally
That's
on
a
like
good idea.
iPhones.
It's pretty cool.
With their family filming, and then they would just be like, take a shot left-handed from the free throw line.
Did you watch it?
I tried, and it was so boring.
That's funny.
I couldn't stick with it. I just thought it was incredibly boring.
Yeah, I could.
Because they also said no dunks because some of the players were older and they had some WNBA players
no
who can't
dunks. That's
really
ridiculous.
dunk. So no dunk. So and they hadn't planned. So I thought also maybe the network thought that they'd be like, I'm going to shoot from the other side of the house and I'm going to do a hook shot from standing on my head and they didn't. They were like left-handed layup. One more from the corner, one from the free throw line. And it was just sort of like, and then be like, I missed. You're just like, what am I watching?
Sounds terrible.
It's terrible.
Yeah, I watched all of Ozark. I've watched a lot of stuff. I saw one really interesting documentary. It was about that the crime labs here in Massachusetts a few years ago, where they found out there was one out in Western Mass where it ultimately came out.
They were making stuff up, or they were.
The woman in Western Mass was a drug addict, so she was consuming all the drugs in the crime lab, just left and right. She was just going through all of it. She was actually making her own crack cocaine in the crime lab. Crazy
That's not a
story.
great look for the lab.
And then there was a nut over here in, I think it was called Hinton Lab. It's down near the Arnold Arboretum in J.P. Rosendale. And she was just making stuff up. She wasn't even testing anything. Like a nut. I mean,
She's
how
making
nutty.
stuff up.
Making it up. So you have to sign these certificates that verify that the drugs weigh a certain amount and they are of certain composition, you know. And she wouldn't even test them. And it was something really strange where all these lab techs have a certain rate that they tend to do on average. Like maybe they can test 10 samples a day, and she was doing somehow 10 times the amount, and that didn't draw any red flag. Nobody said, she's 10 times more efficient. She was a kook. Yeah. And
then you've got to let everyone go, right? That was
well, they didn't. That was a big part of the movie, or I think it's like a 6-part series. They resisted that a lot. It took years, but ultimately,
is this Netflix?
It's on Netflix. Ultimately, I think it was like 30,000 cases had to get thrown out.
That's a lot of cases.
That's a lot of cases. And the woman got, so how many years do you think you should get for basically
ruining 30,000?
Committing perjury in 30,000 cases. What time, what do you think a sentence would be?
I'd give
fair
her
sentence.
30,000 years. A year per case. That seems about fair.
She got 2 years.
I know. No.
So goofy. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
It's probably still net worth it. She's probably like, I made all that overtime for doing 10 times.
I think
you
she,
know, like,
Dan, I think she also got bonuses for
yeah, like
her
if she went back,
performance.
she'd be like, net overall worth it. Like if I could go back, I'd do it again.
Yeah.
2 years.
Weird.
Was that 2 years served or even because
I think that was the sentence. So
she might have done less than 2 years.
I'm sure she did. Yeah.
We're all doing that now.
Crazy. So crazy. Yeah. I
What's
mean, the
name
one
of
woman,
What's the name of the special?
I forget. It's something like a drug scandal, how to fix a drug scandal or something. The woman in Western Mass, she was a drug addict, so I had some compassion for her. She was just out of her mind, you know. She screwed a lot of things up, but this other nut, she was sober, just like lying. Yeah, weird. So crazy. Just awful. Really strange. So, yeah, now I've run out of things to watch. I don't know.
I saw Uncut Gems.
Okay, I saw that.
I liked it.
It's okay. It's a little overrated, right? People said it should have got awards. I watched it. I kept waiting for something interesting to happen.
I agree. I could see saying it should get awards because the ones that get awards aren't that great.
Oh,
either.
right.
Like, you know, it's
Yeah.
in the same class as
Nothing's that
things
great.
that's nominated.
Well, Dan, before this podcast
Right.
episode I prepared, I have some jiu-jitsu.
Right. For those
Concepts.
getting nervous that
Yeah.
we're not going to go over jiu-jitsu.
We got to give them some gold.
In fact, I think it's fair to say we're going to try to make sure that you give good jiu-jitsu tips every episode. Is
Every
that fair?
episode. Yeah.
Every episode. Hang in there. If
Right.
you're here for the jiu-jitsu tips,
Right.
they're coming sooner or later.
It's
If
like
you're not here for the jiu-jitsu tips, they're coming anyway.
it's like the prize in the Cracker Jack box, right? Remember that?
Right. Right. Maybe some people don't want the prize,
Right. Sometimes
but it's there.
it's a little chintzy tattoo that you can lick and stick on you. It's kind of worthless, but yeah.
Isn't it always worthless? Were there good ones?
Over the decades, the quality went down
I
dramatically, I
can't
think.
even remember what any
Yeah.
of them were. Like a
can't
little
either.
tattoo.
Yeah.
Was it like a little jumping jack or something? I can't even, like a little jack or I can't
Yeah,
even remember what would
something
be,
like
what
that,
would be
yeah.
in there. Little plastic person or something.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what those things were.
Well, I think we're going to at least match the quality of that here
Right.
today.
This is going to be more valuable to you than one of those tattoos you lick and put on your arm.
Okay. So I thought, Dan, I really like concepts and principles in jiu-jitsu because I think if somebody can take an idea, a simple, straightforward idea, and they can start applying it immediately. They don't have to memorize so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
A lot easier. So the number one principle or concept that somebody could put to use immediately.
Now, when you say number one, Do you mean number one most valuable or just the
The nu-
first
it's
one?
the first one on the list, but it's actually pretty valuable.
Okay.
When people can get back to jujitsu, I know. Right now. I did some videos of things people can do in their living room. I don't know if you bothered to watch that.
I've seen it, yes.
I've seen it. I did. You see the shoulder roll one I did, the single best solo jujitsu exercise.
Yes.
So John Burke, superfan John Burke, calls me and he says, "Hey, I was doing the shoulder rolls, and you said do 100 of them as a workout." He said I got up to 30, and man, it was brutal. So I stopped at 30. So you do 100 all the time? And I go, I do 100? I go, no. He goes, in the video you said do 100. That would be a good workout. And I realized that I just threw a number out. I just picked a number out of thin air and threw it out there. I was like, yeah, do 100.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you said 100.
I did say 100.
But it turns out that's like really high.
Well, here's the thing. So John challenged me, and I said, gee, I should probably actually do 100 before I tell other people to do 100. So I did do 100 the other day. And
Was it brutal?
it's challenging, but it's actually a great exercise because you have to be efficient in order to do 100. You can't be muscling yourself through them, you know what I mean? So it teaches you how to do the movement in an efficient
Makes
way.
sense.
And I actually did 102 because we call that the mad dog reps when you do an extra rep.
Right.
Yeah. I
used to like to do that. I might be losing as I'm getting older. Maybe I'm losing testosterone, but I always used to like to do one or two more.
Yeah.
Like just to prove like I'm not.
I can do this
Yeah.
all day, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm not like shortchanging, and I'm
Right.
definitely not going the other direction.
Undercutting.
Undercutting, like
Right.
doing less than I said I'd do.
So we should put a challenge out there, Dan. I'm currently the record holder
Having done
for
102.
102. I'm going to consider that the Academy record. 102 backwards shoulder rolls with little or no momentum. That's how we should describe it. Put it out there. If someone out there goes out and does 104, just send me a text, shoot me a Facebook message, or DM me or whatever, and let us know.
Don't lie now. You have to.
They should probably video it, but yeah, just let me know, and we'll see. Then it'll be game on. Okay, so here's the first piece of advice, the first principle concept. It's the word kazushi. We might have talked about it on the podcast before. Do you know what kazushi is, Dan?
That is the first name of Sakuraba, the famous Gracie killer.
The famous Gracie killer. Actually, the word I was trying to say is kuzushi, not kazushi. So Sakuraba's name is spelled K-A. The anglicized spelling of his name is K-A-Z-U-S-H-I. The word I'm saying is K-U-Z-U-S-H-I. Kazushi.
So what I'm avoiding is that we've discussed it, or you've discussed it with me, and I don't remember.
You don't remember?
what
That's
it is.
good.
When you say it, I will remember.
Well,
I'm sure.
one
It's in my
person,
recognition memory.
one person here will be learning something at least. So it essentially means off balancing.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Now I remember.
So, have you ever had a sales job?
No.
So if you're getting a sales job, they always have these little mnemonics, these little acronyms they have. And one of them was ABC, always be closing. So you're supposed to always be trying to close somebody. So I like the ABK, always be kazushiing. So essentially whatever you're doing, whether you're trying to get a takedown, you're trying to attack from your guard, even when you're trying to escape, you want to be off balancing somebody before you get into what you're doing. It's almost like there's two types of jiu-jitsu. There's that jiu-jitsu against somebody who knows no jiu-jitsu at all. Then you almost don't need kazushi. You just do whatever the hell you want to do. Remember that experience when you first came into an academy and you didn't know anything, and people could just do anything to you, right? I think I remember maybe rolling with Kenny Florian, and he just put one hand inside my collar. And I said, yeah, I don't care. And he put the other hand in. The next thing I know, I was almost asleep. Yeah. I was seeing Tweety birds. Yeah.
And do you remember, I mean, this has been a long time for me, but remember being a white, and then you and another white belt just rolling like a couple of animals, just like
flailing around like
flailing
maniacs.
And just like wrestling with trying to use strength and energy to overcome because you had no idea what you were doing.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing I learned was like Americana. So you'd like just desperately, you'd be like next to someone and you just grab that, try to Americana them from any position.
Oh, yeah.
And then I've been on the other side later where you get more experience. There's people try to Americana you. Like you might be mounting them and they're trying to Americana you.
Yeah, that's a funny technique. I'll tell you, Dan, the Americana, so some people call it the paintbrush.
Right.
It's like the opposite of the Kimura, right? It's not used at the highest levels right now at all. And
I notice it never has. No one ever finishes anyone with it in anything,
really.
High level jiu-jitsu or MMA.
Right. There was a fight where the Sambo champion heavyweight, he was on top of Derek Lewis on side control, and he went for the paintbrush, and that allowed Derek Lewis to get out twice in a row.
I thought he seemed too big. I remember that.
They're too big, yeah. So you can't really pin them down well, and they just squirm out. He almost let him do it, I think. Yeah. I think Jesse McElligott last year was fighting a guy, and the guy got out because he went for the paintbrush too. So we're pretty much advocating it at our academy now. Don't do the paintbrush. Do something else instead. I think.
Why do you think it is? People can just kind of squirm and.
I think if you're doing it from side control, your two arms are trying to control their arm, so you're not controlling their head really that much, and you don't have good control over their hips. You know what I mean? So the person can move their body relative to yours and start to get out. It's hard to pin them and do that.
And I almost think there's something where you can get someone, like if friendly rolls, you're more likely to get the tap because someone might be like, my arm's at a funny angle and tap. But in a competition, it then won't work because they're going to put up with a lot more.
I remember being a white belt and a guy paintbrushed me when I first started. And I was like, oh, hell no, I'm not tapping to this. I thought I just had to power back like an arm wrestling match. And my elbow went pop, 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 like 3 loud pops. And it was sore for about a year. But I didn't tap, Dan.
Yeah, well, that's good.
No, that's not good. Don't do that, people.
Yeah, I popped my elbow on a Americana too.
Yeah.
When I was a white belt.
But that's probably another reason why it's not a great technique, because you're not even incapacitating the person. I don't know. I guess you could really wreck somebody's shoulder if you did it right.
But off balance.
Off balance.
This could be just in any way, just sort of.
In any way. Get them to put their hand out, get them to put their foot out, in any way. You got to do it everywhere. Against a better person, you have to do it. Especially if you're attacking from your guard. You have to be kazushiing them. It's almost impossible against an experienced opponent just to reach out and try to do something. And to escape, too. I don't do these types of escapes, Dan, if I'm the bottom of side control, where I do this Herculean bridge and in one strong movement escape. I'm always doing like these little herky-jerky movements. That's also kazushi, you know what I mean? Creating them. Maybe they have to move their arms to catch their balance, and that'll open up some space for something to happen. So you always have to be kazushiing. If you ever ask me, am I doing enough kazushiing? You know what I'm going to say, Dan?
You can say you're doing it perfectly.
No, I'm going to say no. Do more. Always do more. Which leads me to my second principle, combining techniques. So combining techniques, then the techniques themselves start to become kazushi. You know what I mean? In the simplest idea of I push into you, you resist, I pull you. You know, and then of course I want to add technique into that, and I try to sweep you one way, you resist, and then I grab your neck and start choking you, or something like that. But you have to combine techniques. You're trying to escape. You can't just be trying to put them in your guard. You have to be trying to put them in your guard, or get up to your feet. You know what I mean? You got to be looking for 2 different paths. Make the other guy defend 2 different paths.
Now, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to verbalize this properly, but I can think of 2 ways to interpret what you're saying. One is a specific sort of like, I'm going to try to combine these 2 techniques. Like I'm going to try to armbar him, and if he defends it, I'll triangle him. Like a specific 2. And then one is more general, where you're like, I'm going to push him in this way, and then when he resists, I'm going to try something else. Like sort of not specific, but like I'm just going to start stringing things together. Yeah. Whatever sort of pops up. Do you have one or both things in mind, or
one? That's all the same. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So like learn I'm going to put these two things together, or
Yes.
I'm just going to try to.
Yeah.
All
I
right.
think you should try to learn to put two things together because that's what you're going to need at the end of the day.
Well, I always thought that the easiest example in my head for that was passing,
Mm-hmm.
where it was like, try to get my knee this way, and if he turns, go the other way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
Yeah, perfect.
or try
idea.
this pass, and if he sits up, try this other thing. You know.
Yeah. I got to improve in that myself because sometimes I get too determined, too dogged that I'm just going to power through in this one direction, and then it ends up not being efficient. And if somebody is more sophisticated, they can make your one path impassable. So you need two paths to sort of open them up a little bit. So that's number 2, combining techniques. The third idea I wanted to bring up, Dan, I got this idea from Garry Tonon. So Garry Tonon, very successful competitor in grappling, no-gi grappling, and now in MMA over there at One Championships. I don't think they're fighting either, right?
Yeah, everything's shut down.
Everything's shut down. So we, Rory and I purchased an instructional from him that was about defense and escaping. And he made the good point of you want to get, not only do you want to defend and escape, you want to get right back into your offense as quickly as possible. Because if you don't, you might escape something, and then they attack you with something else. You defend that. They attack you with something else. You defend that. Then you defend the next thing. And then you find yourself in a cycle of defense. And then even if you're really good at defending, you have no opportunity of winning. You know, your perfect outcome will be a stalemate, which isn't good enough.
Right.
So we want to avoid cycles of defense. You know, we want to get in a cycle of offense. Like the other guy, if he's always attacking me and I'm always defending, he's in a cycle of offense. So, you know, he can't lose. He can only win if I slip up or get tired, you know. It's like having in a soccer match, if the ball's in front of your goal for the whole match, you know, there's no way you can win. You're likely going to lose. So I think that's a very important concept, this cycle of defense. And the other, which brings me to my fourth idea. Here's the thing, Dan. What if you found yourself in a cycle of defense? Let's say you and I were rolling in the academy, and I'm trying to pass your guard, and I'm combining different passes, and I'm just relentlessly boom, boom. But you're doing a great job. You're blocking me. You're defending, recovering. Ba, 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 ba. Eventually, what's going to happen?
You're going to pass me.
Right. But in your mind, you're going to start saying, I wish this guy would freaking slow down for a second so I catch my breath, right? And you're like, oh, my God. Oh, he didn't pass. He didn't pass. But it sets up a mindset where you're now, I would call it in the prey mindset if you're in this cycle of defense. And the person attacking is in a predator mindset. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where I'm like, he's defending, but I'm going to get there one of these times. And I found those two mindsets, predator mindset versus prey mindset, the predator mindset is almost energizing. Like it almost gives you physical energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you know when I heard this was for stand-up, for boxing?
Uh-huh.
Someone in the academy, I don't remember who
Mhm.
it was, but someone more advanced stand-up person than me said, people fall into that trap, especially if you're sort of not accustomed to stand-up, of more like prey. Like someone's coming at me and you're kind of keeping your hands up and you're circling around and you're trying to keep them off you. And it really helps to have that mindset, like I'm coming after them. Like you have to sort of hunker down and be like, I'm coming for you.
Right. Yeah.
Helps a lot,
Yeah.
mindset-wise. Because you don't get hit more, really. You know, you don't get hit more when you're coming after someone
Right.
than if you're just kind of trying to back away.
And you just feel more confident too, right? Like if I picture like a lion or a cheetah stalking their prey, they really have this relaxed focus, right? They're not worried about something bad happening to them. They're worried about killing this thing, right? And then when you're the prey, you know, you're the little tiny antelope getting a drink by the river, and you're like, oh, shit, is that a cat? It's not a good feeling, right? And you're about to expend all your energy and exhaust yourself because you need to survive. So I think when you get in that prey mindset, it just drains your energy. And as we talked before, when you're the prey, you're going to freeze, flee, or fight. Pretty much in that order. So the first thing you're going to do is freeze. So if you're freezing, you have no offense. You're in that cycle of defense. If If you're fleeing, the same thing. You might be running away in a striking situation, but now the other person, they don't have to worry about you fighting back at all. So
I remember another Jiu Jitsu example, and it didn't always work, but one is that there were times where, for me, one of the smaller athletic guys in the gym would sort of just be on me, like sort of like I'd be turtled up and they'd be on my back. So then I'd roll and they'd be in side control. Then I'd get them off me and they'd go to mount. And then I'd score them out of that. And then they're on my back. Then I'm turtled again. And I'm like, I can't get this guy off me, you know? And the best way and the whole roll would go that way where I'm like, they're just always behind me and always like just, you know, and I'm trying to get them off. And not that I always could, depending on the role or the person, but one way that worked was to have more of be like, grab them, like go after them, like stop escaping
exactly,
and grab them, you know, like
start attacking,
attack them, like even if whatever position you're in, try to attack them, as opposed to continually escaping.
Right.
And that'd be the one way. Then it would be like, oh wait, now they're not on my back at least, and now I just was able to off balance them, and now I'm actually coming forward and trying to pass their guard or something like that. Again, it doesn't, like any of these things, it doesn't always work, and I couldn't always get out.
It doesn't, Dan, but I think it's a great training mindset. It's going to develop you better, and you're going to get better.
I think you could have it even against someone that's significantly better than you, right? You could still try to come after them.
Yeah. You know, I purchased, Gordon Ryan had an instructional where he analyzed his ADCC performance, the whole tournament. It's about 8 hours long. I found it really interesting. And some of the opponents that he had some disdain for them. And his disdain was based on the fact that the guys weren't competing against him to win. They were just sort of like being overly defensive.
Right.
And then two things come of that. Number one, the guy who's overly defensive, he literally cannot win. But he can delay losing.
Right.
And you're actually, you can put the loss off longer than somebody who's aggressive, you know. So then Garry Tonon, his training partner and teammate, the tournament was such that he had to compete against him. And Garry Tonon didn't stall. Like, he attacked. But he ended up getting finished faster maybe than some other people. But it was because he had opened his game up. So you're right. It doesn't guarantee that you're going to win. But it probably guarantees that you're going to develop your game faster and you're going to progress as a martial artist. And it's just better for your mind, too.
You're going to say you feel better, right? You
feel
better.
That thing where you're being overly defensive, stalling, that's a lousy feeling. Yeah, that's no way to compete. Which brings me to another related idea, Dan. I can remember it was a point when I was in my career when I was developing before I was a black belt. I forget who it was, but there was one guy where I would try to pass his guard, and I just couldn't pass his guard. I'm like, God damn it. And it started to get in my head, I think, where I didn't really believe I could pass it. So then the result of that was that I would hesitate maybe at certain times, and then that had a real practical outcome where I wasn't that effective. So for whatever reason, I started to visualize, I can pass his guard, and just visualize passing his guard. I don't remember specifically what I visualized, but I essentially convinced myself, I can pass this guy's guard. And then the next time I rolled, I passed his guard. And I don't think I did anything technically different, but I probably removed some small areas of hesitation. So I was probably really close, but I was hesitating maybe. And I took those hesitations out because I increased my, would you call that confidence? Yeah.
I'd say so.
Yeah, I increased my confidence about that I could pass his guard, and it resulted in improved performance,
Right, because that can be hard when you're rolling against someone, you're like, and you're in their guard and you're thinking, I can't pass. I've been there a lot of times.
It's terrible,
a lot
right?
of people.
Yeah.
You sort of feel like, in the middle of the roll, like, what is the point? Like, I can't. You're like, what am I even trying for here? I can't pass it. So
right.
Like you said, it's good mental strength too, to just overcome that and try to convince yourself that you can.
Definitely. Yeah. Maybe I'm going to try to emphasize doing that more in my training even now.
Because, again, about the negativity, because then you can get in this cycle. You've probably never been there, but I have, where You're like, I can't pass this guy's guard. I can't pass his guard. And then even if you do, then you think, well, he probably just let me pass his guard, or like he's probably tired, or so you put yourself where you can't win. You know what I mean? Like because any success is like, well, obviously if I passed, it means he's tired, or.
And then there's that trap where you finally pass, and then you just hold on to side control like grim death, right?
I'm not going back. I'm not going back there. Yeah,
which isn't good either. Yeah, yeah. If you can always be looking to advance your game, that ends up being very powerful as well, where you're just pushing the pace all the time, because then the other person typically wants to take a break in the match. They want to let's just stay here in side control for a second. Let me catch my breath, and then you're not. You keep pushing the pace. That's effective as well. Yeah. Dan Gable talked about that in that book, The Fighter's Mind, about breaking the other person mentally and just like getting them to not want to compete anymore through his relentless pressure. And you see that in jiu-jitsu, right, where people just get broken. They just kind of quit. They don't try as hard. See in MMA, even in UFC, right? Some guys, all of a sudden, they gave up their back and they're getting rear naked choke. Yeah. Interesting, right?
But it also just stands to reason that, so if you're new, there's people that you can't pass their guard.
Right.
But it happens all the time that there's people that you fail 100 times and then you get better and then you can pass someone's guard, right? Like, it's sort of, it's going to be very common that you fail many, many times.
Yep.
And then develop the skill to do something.
I thought it was interesting. I used to train with Kenny Florian, and I remember, so he was a purple belt, I think, when I started as a white belt, but I had heard stories. He might have told me these stories that, I think he told me that he had this sort of, I call it almost an unreasonable confidence when he started, where he learned some pass, like the simple grab the pants and go around. He's like, oh my God, I can pass anybody now. You know what I mean? He just had this great confidence, and it served him. He was a great competitor, in jiu-jitsu and in MMA, just a really great competitor. I mean, he fought for the UFC title 3 times. That's amazing, right? Yep. Then I was listening to a podcast with Gordon Ryan recently, and I guess he was the same way. He, like they say, he's super cocky, and like he has this persona where he wears like a king's crown and like a robe sometimes, and it looks preposterous. And some people think, well, he's just putting on a show. He's putting on an act. He's really not that arrogant. But on this podcast, I think it was him and Garry Tonon, they go, no, yeah, that's how he is. He's always been that way. And he was that way when he was a white belt, which is interesting, right? It's like that type of personality. You know how we hear that expression all the time, leave your ego at the door? So you're like, how could somebody that arrogant and overconfident survive in jiu-jitsu where you're getting so much realistic feedback all the time? Interesting, right?
Yeah. I remember, Kenny used to say that all the time, where each new move, he'd be like, well, now I'm going to
beat Hicks and Gracie.
I can just pass a black belt now with that pass.
Yeah.
And as the follow-up to that, I think I remember him saying, someone, if he could never pass, like, a black belt's guard, he would relentlessly always think, well, I'm going to get him the next time. And it could be 100 times in a row, and he'd be like, well, next roll is my time. That's not a bad mindset either, right?
No, that's a good mindset. Him and Gordon Ryan must just be blessed from birth with that kind of mindset, though, right? Is that something you can develop?
I think you can move yourself in that direction, right? I don't think you can have that same mindset if you don't have it, but you can try to move yourself that way, right? Isn't that all that we're talking about here? Like,
well, I used to do these mantras, Dan, where when I was passing, I would say to myself, nobody can stop my pass. Nobody can stop my pass. And I would say it really quickly and energetically like that. And it would keep me like passing. It would just
in your head, I'm guessing.
I would scream it out loud.
Oh,
yeah. No, I would do it in my head. And it was very effective. And it made me a better passer, I think, because I could just keep bringing the heat. You know what I mean? And I didn't get tired for some reason. I don't know. And I told one of our students, I think I told Mike Campanella, I love Mike. Mike has a business in Newton. It's PEX.
Yeah.
Look him up, man. He's a great trainer, great guy. And I told him, yeah, I have this mantra that I do. And he goes, yeah, but there are people that can pass my guard. So his personality was such that he couldn't use that mantra. It was too literal for him. I'm like, well, I guess you got to find something that's going to work for you. I'm dumb enough that mantra works for me, where I can say nobody can pass my guard.
Mike's also as a quickest one of the guys who would be like on my back and then on my side, and then he'd spend the whole roll jumping around. And one of the ones that I was just referring
You're like, why
to,
don't I just lay here and conserve some energy?
And I'd finally squirm out. I said he was the one in the middle of rolls. I'd be like, where'd he go? I'd be like, oh, he's on my back. So like lying around, like,
where'd he go?
Where'd he go? I'm like looking around the gym, like, he's on my.
That sounds like a cartoon, Dan. That's very.
He was
funny.
very quick and athletic.
Definitely, yeah.
Assume he still is.
Yeah, great at Jiu Jitsu too. So where were we? Oh, those mantras.
Yeah. Nobody can
pass. Nobody can stop my pass. Yeah, I got to go back to that, Dan. I got to start visualizing success. It's funny how this is what I do. I've been doing this for 20 years. I come up with all these little tricks and techniques that are very effective, and then I stop using them because they work so well. I just forget about them. That's crazy.
Well, that's actually probably a big point, right? We all forget these things. We all think about them and go, hey, that's really effective, and then you forget. Because also you're shown something else, so you're focusing on that, and you can just forget.
Right. And then any ritual that you do, I find, say I'm going to start doing something, add some ritual to my training or whatever, and it's meaningful. It's almost like you get a tattoo. I'm going to get this tattoo. I'm going to use these symbols and these words. It means a lot to me, right? It's very special and meaningful. A few years go by, you forget you even have the tattoo. Right. It becomes meaningless, right? I grew up Catholic, and you go to church every week again, and then you just sleepwalk through the whole thing. It had no meaning at all after a while. And I think some of these rituals, in the beginning they can become meaningful, but then they get pedestrian, right? And just too routine. Well, what I was thinking about doing lately is I get together with my son and do a little training with him, since I figure that's not violating any social distancing, since we technically live with each other, Right. And but I don't want to get frustrated. I want to get as much learning out of the training as possible, So before we train, I try to meditate a little bit and come up. I haven't come up with a crystal clear process, Dan, but just get myself in that place of I'm here to try my hardest, but I'm here to sort of master myself and become a better coach and become a better martial artist and a better jiu-jitsu player. And don't get too frustrated if I don't get the results that I don't want. You know what I mean?
That's not a bad idea, too, for everybody to just, whatever you want to emphasize in your training, take a second to call it meditate or call it not, or whatever you want to call it. Just, it could be in the car before you go in even.
Right.
Or more ideally on the mat, just take a second.
I think if you did 2 minutes, that would be good, right? I mean, that'd be well worth 2 minutes of time. Yeah.
Well, as opposed to doing nothing.
Of doing nothing, right? Yeah. So
just get your head around, here's what I want to do today. And
definitely. Yeah. I should be doing that. Definitely. Well, Dan, I think we're up on our time here, man. So we got some great stuff in, I think. Got some good gems in, right?
And there's more to come.
More to come.
Next week.
I was talking to Rory yesterday, and I said, I wonder what we're going to talk about on a podcast tomorrow, because I was trying to prepare all week. I just couldn't pull it together. And he says, I know one thing you're going to talk about. And I said, what's that? He goes, the coronavirus. He goes, every podcast you guys start off saying you're not going to talk about it, and then you talk about it.
We have to, right?
It's hard not to put it in context.
Well, we didn't do much today.
I think we're doing fine, Dan. I got some good feedback about our episodes. I think we're
steady.
Fine.
Our podcast is here for you through all this.
I hope everybody's safe and well out there. I really miss everybody. I'm really eager to get back. And then we want to challenge people to that shoulder rolls. How many shoulder rolls can you do? Dan, what do you think you could pull off?
About 3.
Okay. Maybe if we incentivize you with an Oreo of some sort, we might pull off 4 or 5.
I don't know. I actually have no idea. Maybe I'll try it. I'll do a bunch.
Cool.
We'll see how we're doing.
All right, guys. Please stay safe. Can't wait to get back, and we'll talk to you next week.